Hi everyone! Today I'll be sharing on the 3 traits or qualities that I feel contributed to the so-called success of my law journey. I mean, I won't say that I'm very successful, but at least I am decent or at least minimally average. So these were some traits that I guess I unintentionally picked up. The first of which is reading. So I used to be a really avid reader when I was a kid. Now I can't say that I read much. I won't even call myself a reader anymore because of the law career and law school. Basically, law school just simply destroyed my whole joy for reading. Just because you read too much at school and at work that it's like it's a chore to read anything else apart from the stuff that you have to read at work already. Yeah, so it's kind of sad that I don't enjoy reading that much anymore. But I remember I started reading at quite a late age. I think it was around like primary 5, so that's about 11 years old. Not to say that I didn't know how to read English before that, but I didn't really read books before that. So when I started becoming interested in reading books, English became something very natural, like grammar, vocab, everything just flows. And this really helped in doing law because I think once you're a reader, you naturally kind of write well because a good command of the language is what you need to write well as well. Also, the more you read, the faster you read. And because of the volume of the things that you actually have to read in law school and at work, it's good to have the skill of reading fast and being able to kind of catch the main points or absorb information quickly from reading a chunk of words. This is a very good skill to have. So if you love reading, then it's good for you because you are already naturally grooming yourself to become a better reader and writer. And if you're not into reading, I would say just start from reading the most mundane or just short things like maybe even the news. Well, that's the advice that I give people, like just to start from reading the news. I feel that it's very different from reading an entire book or novel. I think the news is very watered down and the language used is very simplified. So I think if you really want to improve your language, the only way I see is to actually go into reading books and you'll just become very naturally. Writing will become second nature to you. It's just like walking. You don't really have to think much about it. Instead, you can focus your attention on thinking about the substance or the problem or the issue instead of thinking of, oh, should I use this grammar? Like, is it was, were, or what? Your focus will be on content instead of the technicalities of the language. Second, listening. I feel that this is super important. I can't emphasize how important listening is because I see how it is super useful in life and at work and also in school. So when I was a kid, I used to be a very poor listener. Someone who just doesn't learn by listening. So I'm the kind of person who often daydreams in class. Like maybe 60% of the time I'm daydreaming and 40% of the time I'm talking to my friends. So I was just the kind of student who didn't believe in listening in class because I felt that, I don't know, it was just not my style of learning. I would rather go back and read the textbook and then learn from what I read in the textbook. Basically a visual learner instead of an audio learner. And I also believe that the speed at which people go or at which teachers try to teach is just too fast. It's like there's so much content that even if I listen for the whole hour, I won't remember anything I listen. So that was my mindset and my belief as a child. So I was never the sort of student who paid attention in class. In fact, I never paid attention and never knew what was going on in class. To me, I go to class just to sit there and chit-chat with my friends and pass time or just take my attendance. But it was never like an avenue for me to learn. I lived with this mindset all the way through JC. I took A-levels and everything. But uni really changed my life because in SMU, the classes are conducted by seminars, so it's a discussion, meaning that you are expected to respond to questions that professors pose and comments that your friends have raised. Because of this seminar style, it kind of forced me to have to pay attention in class. Because if you don't pay attention, how are you going to answer the question? Essentially, I was forced to become an audio learner. Now, a lot of discussions are happening even without slides or without notes. So if you don't learn by listening, then there is no way else you can learn, unless your prof is kind enough to provide you with notes, which is not the case most of the time. So like I said, listening really helps with learning. And also, in life, if you listen well, I think it helps with understanding. It helps with understanding people and where their position is and where they're coming from. Everyone loves a good listener. There's nobody who will tell you that they don't like having a friend who listens well. And no teacher will tell you that they don't like a student who listens well. It's universal because I think everyone's default is that they like to speak and they like to talk about themselves. People like to talk about the things they love, and most of the time, unfortunately or fortunately, people love themselves, so they'll talk about themselves. I'll talk about something that they're passionate about. And when they talk, they want a good listener. So if you have a listening ear to offer, you are definitely highly valued, regardless of whether it's in a personal relationship or in the workplace or in school. Basically in any setting, everyone loves to be listened to. The next question that comes is how then to listen well. And I think listening is actually quite a hard skill to master. It's not something very natural, at least for me. Over the years, I've had people comment and tell me that, wow, your memory is scary. You tend to remember a lot of details and things that people don't remember. And I attribute it to me listening and paying attention to what they're saying. And I feel that the reason why I'm able to remember all these minute details, not saying that I remember my law very well or my work very well, because I think that I'm not super interested in all these things. Well, yes, I'm interested, but I'm definitely more interested in people, their lives, what they like, who they are as a person. And because I take a natural interest in all these things, then you just tend to pay attention to the details and remember them even better. I think when I take an interest, I will always ask myself, what is the significance of this info that I'm listening to? For instance, if my friend tells me that, oh, I don't really like chocolate, to me, there's something that I will pay attention to because the significance of this info is next time if I'm going to buy a gift for my friend, then I will know, okay, don't buy this person chocolate. To me, if you find that you are able to use the info in one way or another, whether it's to bless them in future, to know more about them, to understand them as a person, then naturally it will just be retained in your memory. At least that's the way my listening works. When I listen, I try to listen out in view of the fact that, okay, I will use this info for good. in future. Whether is it a tangible or intangible good. Of course, during work, it's a tangible good because you need to listen and you need to pay attention to what the clients are instructing you so that you can produce the work that they want. But in terms of personal relationships, I think there are a lot of intangible things that, yeah, I feel that, okay, humans are very predictable. And you know how the Bible always says that people speak from the fullness of their heart. So to me, whenever people say something, I gather something about them. Whether is it a careless word or a planned word or not, but no one is able to fully plan every single thing they say. So whatever they slip out reflects something about them. And it's not a bad thing in that sense, but it's more like whatever is bothering you deep inside will just come out naturally. Unless you're super uptight and super able to control what you say all the time. Yeah. Second way is don't listen to respond. I feel that there are so many people who make this mistake because, okay, to call it a mistake is a bit harsh, but I do notice it when people are listening to respond because they are not listening to you fully. It's essentially, let's say, if you tell them a story, this story has 10 sentences. The moment you speak the first one, they are already getting ready to respond. So they are not listening to the rest of your 9 sentences. They're just like, okay, on the first point, I already have something to say, and the whole mind is just focused on, okay, I'm going to say this the moment she ends, I'm going to say this the moment she ends. So your next 9 sentences just fly by them. Yeah, they're so absorbed in their own mind and so absorbed in responding to you and jumping to conclusions, or even just sticking to whatever assumptions they have about your next 9 sentences, that they are completely turned off. It's not even listening. Basically, it's partial listening. You just listen to the one part and then you blank out for the rest. Third thing, I feel that the devil is in the details. Okay, I think this is very closely linked to the last point here, which is don't listen selectively. You know, there's this phrase called selective hearing, and that's what a lot of people do. People hear what they want to hear and then don't hear what they don't want to hear. So when you advise someone, usually people will just take the advice that they want and disregard the advice that sounds difficult or sounds contrary to what they believe. And basically, they will just selectively listen and be like, oh, okay, this point supports me. That point doesn't support me. I'm just going to throw it away. But the truth is that the devil is in the details, and you learn from the things that you would at first glance disregard. So if you take a moment to listen to every single thing, for instance 5 points, and out of these 5 points, 3 points are things that you feel, I don't think it makes sense. But if you actually focus on listening to them, maybe you might just learn something. And that is what I feel happens most of the time, because usually the 3 points that you don't want to listen to are the hard truths that you need to listen to. So yeah, pay attention to every single thing, even the things that you don't feel like paying attention to. The 4th point, don't trust your memory. So this is something that I used to do all the time when I was younger. I always believed that I have superb memory, so I would just take instructions, listen, and be like, okay, I'll remember this. Like, this date is the date for my exam. I'll remember it in my head, and I won't write it down anywhere. And then 2 days later, when I try and recall, oh, what did this person tell me? I realized I can't actually remember the details. It's like your mind will play tricks on itself, and then you won't be so clear what exactly you heard. So I think one good habit that comes with listening is also to note down what you've listened, especially if it's at work and school. Just don't trust your memory, because your memory will definitely fail you. But if you write it down, you can be almost 99% sure that you have heard correctly. Unless you're a pro transcriber and you can't even write down what you have just heard, right? So don't trust your memory, especially with school and work, because I think those are like info overload, and usually the prof says so many things at one go that it's better to write down whatever you hear on the spot there and then, instead of trying to recall or rely on your memory. I know I'm very naggy, but I really can't emphasize how listening has changed my life, because like I said earlier, I really don't used to believe that I can learn anything from listening in class. But I think when I was in SMU and the learning was very discussion based, I realized that the teachers do go at a pace that is more palatable and more readily absorbed if you are paying full attention. So I have noticed that a lot of classmates are not paying full attention. They are typing notes but missing out certain things, or basically they're just not 100% there. So they tend to miss points here and there. And once you skip a step of logic, right, it's very easy to get lost after that. My experience with law school is that if you actually really pay attention, you are able to follow and get the concepts there and then in class, so that you don't have to spend so much time at home revising, trying to figure out what this case said, what this judge said, or such things. But your time at home will be just spent perhaps pulling out the correct paragraph or finding the precise wording. But at least you will be able to grasp all the important concepts in class and the essence of the case, so you can reduce your revision time. Just pay attention and open your ears. Anyway, your ears are always open, so why not use them productively, right? Finally, the last quality I feel super important is discipline. I put here overachiever because I think maybe I was a little bit of an overachiever as a kid. Not that I achieved very great things or won a lot of championships or medals or prizes. No, I wasn't that kind of kid, but I was the kind of kid who did a lot of things in life. What I mean by a lot of things is that I was very much engaged in a wide variety of activities. So for example, like when I was studying in JC, I was also learning piano, doing my piano exam, I was learning violin. At some point, I was also learning wushu. And then I had CCA to juggle with, I was also learning swimming. So there were a lot of things that I was doing outside of studying. And because of that, I had to be very disciplined when doing each of these things. Like when I'm swimming, I have to swim well and focus well on my swimming, so that I don't have to spend extra time outside of that allocated time to practice further. You need to have a lot of discipline and drive to do your best in the allocated time. What I mean by allocated time is the time that you allocate yourself to do something. This is important unless you feel that you're the sort of person who likes to spend hours and hours on end working on something unproductively. So for instance, maybe you like to spend 16 hours a day studying, which to me is ridiculous, because a human's productive hours are not that long. Like at most I would say 8 hours is max. Anything after that is just unproductive work. Like maybe you can still be reading but perhaps slower or not absorbing as fast. What I mean by doing your best during the allocated time is that, let's say if you give yourself 4 hours to finish this piece of reading, you must really set your mind and actually focus to do it and to do it well, so that after 4 hours is done, you're like, okay, I'm done with whatever I've planned, and you can move on to doing other things in life. I'm the sort of person who doesn't like to spend time chit-chatting while I'm doing work, like in school and at work at the same time. I don't really like to interrupt my work with some chit-chat in the middle. I'd rather spend full 4 hours of focus finishing an advice, and once I finish, then yeah, we can go on and chit-chat. I think it's super important to have that discipline and not let external factors influence the way you function. So if you feel very FOMO and you cannot not participate in a chat or in a gossip, then there will be a price to pay lah. And I'm the sort of person who's not willing to pay the price because number one, gossip is wrong, and then I want to sleep, and I also want to have time for my friends. Like I want to spend quality time. I don't want it to be like 6:30 time, you know, where half I'm doing work, half I'm chit-chatting, that kind of thing. So I'd rather finish my work proper and then have all my allocated quality time to be spent with family and friends. You know, another aspect of discipline is also emotional discipline, which I don't know is a good thing or a bad thing, because sometimes when I do work, I feel like a robot. Sometimes I ask myself, how do robots function? Why are they so efficient? It's because they don't have feelings and they don't have emotions. They don't tire out, they don't feel sad, depressed, or just burnt out. So when it comes to work, sometimes I do put the effort to compartmentalize and tell myself, this is not the hour to feel. This is not the hour to be feeling dreadful, to be feeling complainful, or to be feeling sad, hurt, whatever. So that in this period of time, I just essentially discipline my emotions and be like, okay, I will deal with this later. But for now, when I need to do my work and when I need to be productive in this hour, then this is the time to be productive. Okay, that's all for today, and I hope you are keeping safe and resting well. See you!